Chapter 33. The Sound of a Timeline Breaking. On a flooded road out past the edge of the city, in the gray of a storm morning, the most important thing that never happened didn't. There was no second funeral. There was no aunt crying in a kitchen, no casserole dishes, no silence that a family fell into and never climbed out of. There was, instead, a stalled truck facing the wrong way on a wet two-lane road. A jackknifed rig shrieked to rest in the ditch behind it. A shaken truck driver climbing down from the far cab unhurt and swearing at the storm. And a carpenter named David Cole sitting in his stopped truck with his heart slamming, and his hands shaking on a wheel that had, somehow, against everything, come back to him in the half-second he needed it. He was alive. He did not understand why. One instant the rig had been swinging across the road straight into him, the wheel dead in his hands, the water taking the truck, the certainty of a bad and final thing rushing up. And the next instant the tires had bitten, impossibly, and something had jolted through him like a current and slammed his foot to the brake and his arms to the wheel, a beat sooner than thought, and the truck had slewed sideways out of the path of the trailer by a margin of feet, by a margin of nothing, by a margin no careful man could explain. He had driven that road 100 mornings. He knew what should have happened on the water. He was alive, and he did not know why, and there was no time to wonder, because his son would not wake up. Ethan! Ethan! David had the boy out of the seatbelt, and in his arms before he had fully registered moving, the terror of the road forgotten under a larger one. His son was limp. Pale, cold, breathing, thank God, shallow but breathing, but limp and senseless, his small head lolling, his eyes shut, utterly unresponsive to his father's shaking voice and his father's hands. He had been awake a moment before. He had been awake and calm, eerily calm, in the instant before the water, and David's mind, scrambling, could find no reason on this earth why a buckled child in a seat should suddenly go dark like a snuffed candle, while the man beside him walked away without a scratch. "Come on, bud, come on, wake up for me, wake up," David's voice cracked. He got the truck started, hauled it around on the empty flooded road, and drove fast now, faster than the storm should have allowed, one hand on the wheel and one pressed to his son's cold cheek, talking the whole way, a steady, desperate stream of "Stay with me, bud, you stay with me. We're almost there, you're okay, you're gonna be okay, daddy's got you, you stay with me." The same words. Daddy's got you. The words he had said over a crib 7 years and a lifetime ago, said now in terror down a storm-dark road, to a son who could not hear them. He did not go to the job site. He never reached the development, never met Vance's waiting men, never gave the careless contractor another morning of his life. He drove the other way, toward the hospital, toward the city, away from the road that had tried twice now to take a coal and failed the second time, carrying his unconscious son, and his own inexplicable survival, and a terror that had nothing to do with the rig and everything to do with the small, pale shape against his chest. And somewhere under the dark, far down, Ethan felt it, felt the shape of what he had done, even senseless, even spent. He could not wake. There was nothing left to wake with. He had poured every thread of himself into 4 seconds, and there was only emptiness where the will to surface should be. But under the dark, in the deep cold quiet where the spent coal had been, he felt the great fact of the morning settle over the world like snow. The accident did not happen. The fixed point of his first life, the wound around which everything had been built, the wet road and the 4 seconds and the death of David Cole, gone. Not survived. Not narrowly escaped. unmade. He had reached all the way back through the cold place without stars and across 5 lonely years of patience and a shattered wall, and he had reached into the most weighted morning in the river of his life, and he had broken it, and his father was alive and driving and afraid and alive, and the long ruin that had followed the first death, the widow at the window, the gray fatherless childhood, all of it, would simply never come to pass. It was the largest thing he had ever done. It was the thing he had come back to do. And he had done it, and the doing had cost him everything he had, and now he lay senseless in his living father's arms while that father wept and drove and did not understand, and could never be told, that the small spent shape he carried had just rewritten the whole history of their family with a power no one on earth was supposed to have for another 28 years. I kept him, Ethan thought, far down under the dark, the thought turning slow and warm in all that cold emptiness. I kept him, whatever it cost, whatever comes. I kept him. David Cole carried his unconscious son into the bright, loud chaos of the hospital and gave him over to hands that would find nothing wrong. No injury, no illness, no reason at all for a healthy 7-year-old to have collapsed into a senseless, cold-sweated dark on a morning his father inexplicably survived. They would run their tests and shake their heads. They would use the word exhaustion, the word shock, the words doctors use when a thing has plainly happened and no cause can be found. And they would not be wrong exactly, and they would not be right, because the truth was not in any of their books. The truth was that out on a flooded road in the gray of a storm morning, a timeline had broken, and Ethan had heard it break and felt it break, and paid for the breaking with every thread of the power he had grown in the dark. He would wake in time. The body was young, and the channels, though torn, would mend, and the emptiness where the coal had been would not be empty forever. There would be a cost to count and a father to reckon with, and 1,000 consequences to face in the unmapped country on the far side of the change he had just made. But all of that was for later, for the waking. For now there was only this: David Cole, alive, 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 holding his living son in a bright hospital hallway in the storm-gray morning, and somewhere far down under the dark, spent past all sense and triumphant past all words, the boy who had kept him, resting at last after 5 long years of watching, in the warmth of a father who would not this time be taken.